So yeah, it doesn't seem like all these support measures for the specific sector are boosting investor confidence. We're down a few more points today.
Yeah, David, as you mentioned, the PBOC support measure that was out yesterday, that sounded very similar to the Politburo announcement last week in terms of supporting the property sector. The crux of the matter really is that investors are interpreting all those measures as really supportive for home buyers rather than developers themselves. So developer bonds are really not moving at all on those support measures, and the stocks have been very volatile. And we've also seen a few negative news items over the last few days about the developer sector, including the further slump in home sales in July and the lack of fresh details in Evergrande restructuring, which is making people think maybe other distressed developers will also take a long time, if at all, to produce any restructuring plans for their debt.
Okay, so after that horrible performance we saw in July when it comes to Chinese equities, what do you think sentiment is looking like now among investors?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. When we did that story, or when we asked a lot of investors at the end of June, everybody was very bullish, saying that China is going to outperform the U.S. market in the second half of this year. But 1 month in, the CSI 300 is already underperforming the U.S. S&P 500 by 16 percentage points. I think that really illustrates how difficult it is to trade as an investor when China's having this on again and off again COVID zero control policies. And any kind of rally will be short-lived until China comes out with another sort of COVID lockdown in some major cities. So the sentiment right now, I think is quite bearish. It's especially when you guys are talking about how Taiwan is stoking. I mean, Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is stoking investor concerns that more outflows from Chinese markets will continue.
Yeah, in fact, Lianting, I was going to ask you about that. Right now, U.S. futures session lows were down over 1% on the overall benchmark. Would you say, when you're talking to your team today, that's probably your top story when it comes to markets right now?
Yeah, right now I think, all eyes are on Taiwan. I think just people, I think onshore investors have a very different sort of take on the Taiwan issue versus offshore. Yesterday, the CSI 300 did sort of rally a little bit, and today we're seeing a big leg down. And investors are sort of not saying that it's really because of the Pelosi visit to Taiwan. They're pinning it on sort of, the softer or the GDP target might be scrapped and that kind of economic slowdown. So the narrative onshore, again, is different. But offshore market, I think some investors have been saying Hong Kong-listed Chinese stocks and U.S.-listed Chinese stocks are more prone to the capital outflows.